edition of the MSP Initiative MSP Talk podcast. Thanks for joining us. And if you're watching this after the fact or listening to it after the fact, all good. Make sure you like, subscribe, forward, share, download all of our stuff on the YouTubes and the podcatchers, and all of our stuff's posted to mspinitiative.com. I'm going to get some housekeeping out of the way, then we're going to get into the good stuff. Love my guests today. Not that I don't love all of them, but always good conversation. So here we go. Housekeeping. mspinitiative.com. I already said that. Here are the things that we know are coming up in the next little while. One, we're working in conjunction with Zero Trust World and the conference down in Orlando at the beginning of March. We're doing a MSP block party, which is all on mspinitiative.com with the Zero Trust World team. Super excited. They've been super supportive, great community partner. Check out ZTW, zerotrustworld.com. We're working in, a block party there. Second block party is going to be with our friends at Enable, N-A-B-L-E, Enable. They are running their Empower conference in Fort Lauderdale. So we're working with that team. We'll be doing a community block party with the Enable Empower team. So check out Enable Empower Fort Lauderdale. And that's coming up here, I believe, in the next 60 days. After that, we will be working with our friends from Gtia. They are running their Connect conference in Vegas at the MGM. We'll be doing a community block party with them. And so that's coming up, I believe, in April. And then after that will be that's the US event, Connect Vegas. The European event is called Connect Europe, surprise. And that is going to be in Prague in June. That one's going to be fun. So we're going to Prague in June with the Connect Europe. And then I'm going to stop at this one in June, the Flow conference hosted by Roost in Nashville. We're working with them. Again, we were in Tampa last year, in Nashville this year. So that's a lot of in-person community block party events. Thank you to all of those groups for working with us. I know there's a lot of fine parts that need to get, worked out as we always work, with all these, conferences and events for, everyone, right? But all of these guys have been absolutely fantastic to work with, and we really appreciate them, being willing to make all this happen along in conjunction with all the stuff we work on. So all of that stuff is at mspinitiative.com. Go check it out. We'll be updating that constantly there with all the more important details, where, when, why, how, etc. Okay, bam. Housekeeping's out of the way. Welcome back, Chris Johnson, to the podcast. How you doing, Chris?
Good. Thanks for having me back again. I mean, I must have done okay if we get to come back.
Oh yeah, I think you're one of the more popular guests that we've had on the show over time. So I'm going to put some background in here before we get into the topics of the day. So Chris, I'm sure will give us their background. I'm going to ask him to explain what GTIA is a little bit better. And I just want to get two dates out of the way right up. We're in housekeeping mode, right out of the way. I know once we understand what GTIA is and why you should pay attention or care about it, I know that there's a Chicago date and I know that there's a San Diego date. So I just want to get those out of the way, and then we'll get into the other good stuff. Go ahead, Chris.
All right. So you wanted to get the two dates out of the way.
Well,
So
first explain what GTIA is
okay.
and
Yeah, that's
why
fair.
anyone in the sandbox should care, and then we'll get those dates in there.
We're formally, I don't even want to say who we formally were. It doesn't matter anymore. We're still the same association we've always been, but we are fresh with the GTIA standing for Global Technology Industry Association.
Mhm.
And, we're like the one place that you can go that's really vendor neutral, nonprofit association for solution providers, ITSPs, distributors within the IT channel ecosystem. So, I can look back in time to the days I had my MSP, and I would argue that the most I grew our business, the engagements that I had, the career development that I gained, largely came from getting involved with GTIA at the different, communities and councils forums, regional events, member meetups, ChannelCon. All of those things were a big part of maturing my business and later landing myself here. I never in a million years thought I would end up working at the association, but here I am.
Okay, so two events coming up. I think one's coming up pretty soon in Chicago, and then I believe later on in
Yes.
the year is San Diego. So we'll go ahead and line them up.
Yeah, so the North America Community and Councils Forums is happening in March, so like right around the corner. Those dates are the let me double check so I get this right. It is going to be, good grief, that is not the right. It's March 9th through the 11th.
So in like
And
3 weeks.
then three
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah.
And then we have in August this year, we have ChannelCon happening in San Diego, and those dates are August 3rd through 5th.
Okay. So if you're looking for, two different cities, climates, but a grouping of a lot of people who are in the sandbox at various places congregated, you might want to concentrate on these two spots. And Chris, I assume you'll be at both of these personally.
I would assume so. I've booked my hotel and travel arrangements to be at the Chicago North America Communities and Councils Forum, so I got that one out of the way. I have not yet booked San Diego. Fingers crossed prices go down on plane tickets between now and August.
It is the ever. Although, did you hear that the cheapest time to buy airplane tickets is 2:37 a.m.
Of what day? I think
Any
Tuesday.
day. What?
Oh,
Well,
any
but
day.
2:37 a.m. is when the algorithm goes down to the lowest.
I will make a note to set my alarm for 2:36 just to give me enough time to get it booked.
There you go. It's in a very specific time. So there's a tip. If you came to this podcast, you came away with something already.
That's
All
right.
right, Chris, for people who haven't talked to you, met you, or listened to prior podcasts with you in the past, why don't you explain what you do and the programs that you run so that they have a little bit of background on kind of the idea behind what we're talking about today?
Sure. So context, I spent most of my career heavily involved in regulatory compliance, helping organizations with HIPAA compliance, banking, FDIC, FFIEC. I've done way more than I care to count as far as assessments and sort of come alongside to help organizations satisfy safeguards found in frameworks largely for the regulated space. And my passion and largely where I'm involved at GTIA today is inside of cyber programs. I have the privilege of having some oversight to the cybersecurity trust mark, which is built specifically for the ITSP members. I have to give credit to all of the many and amazing volunteers who helped make this a reality. I remember my own journey of volunteering all the way back more than a decade ago when the trust mark first started to appear. It's actually been around more than 20 years, rebooted in 2022, and that's what I get to do. So the trust mark itself is obviously a small piece of my day-to-day job. I really, whether you're focused on obtaining the GTIA cybersecurity trust mark, or you just have questions around how to implement something, whether you're looking to satisfy a safeguard or not, I love having those conversations. I don't know how many times I've spent hours at a bar talking to a Matt Lee or a Jason Slagle and get off in the weeds on things that we know that we can solve for, because at the end of the day it all comes down to the human element. And I think if more MSPs were more focused on the people process part of the equation and less focused on how quickly they can, buy another tool. And I was watching a YouTube video this morning as I was making coffee, and it was funny. It was talking about the go back to the basics. It talked about how in the Apple ecosystem, if you're an Apple person, there's three apps that come with every Apple product, has been around since largely the beginning of the Apple ecosystem, and that was Notes, Reminders, and Tasks. And the guy was basically saying, like, and claiming to be a victim of this problem too. He's like, the number of apps that have promised to solve for note taking or calendaring or any of those three, right? And the amount of money. And he goes, and by and large, after 3 to 6 months of investing countless hours, I find myself back with the basic tools that came with this for free, right? And
100%.
so I think that it was a great, I immediately gravitated to the challenges that ITSPs face, and that is that there's always a shinier, brighter tool to invest in. And I'm not advocating that any of that is wrong. It's just that sometimes there is a process or a people challenge that, if solved, sure does make the look like the tool that you have awfully shiny.
I say this all the time. I feel like on almost every conversation, everything's great. Like the decision maker in your business makes a move, but if the adoption isn't there, fails every time. I don't
Right.
care. I don't care what it is. Hey, you told everybody they got to clock in on time. If nobody clocks in on time, fail. Doesn't matter, right?
Right.
So yeah, that is adoption is an important word on your way to either the word failure or churn, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a very one-to-one correlation, and it's a slippery slope, in my opinion. So since we're talking about this topic, I'm going to bring up the topic of the day that fits perfectly. Chris Johnson, what's your feedback on Claude Bot?
Oh, of course, or some of the many other names that it's been called. So I'm going to say this: it's amazingly powerful. It
Mm.
can do amazing things, but without the right guardrails when you go to use it being put in place, it's a very dangerous, very powerful tool.
Okay, so for everybody that is like under a rock and not paying attention, so this guy made an open source, like what he's calling is on your way to Jarvis from Iron Man movies, right? And
Right.
so he's like, hey, open source, install it on your, computer. It's basically, and hopefully don't put it on your actual computer, like take a computer that's fresh and not you're not using it on the side. And like basically it's got to start doing things for you, right? Problem and like it's making decisions, it's writing code. He even said that it started learning languages on its own once it was running and
It's
created its
simple.
own.
It's stupid simple is also the other scary part, is like you don't have to be, a rocket scientist to install this GPT. To this AI is not like I think they even hype it as like one click install.
Yeah. And I was watching a couple clips on how easy it is to do it. And here's my concern, right? Like you tell it to go do something, it's gonna go try and figure out a way to go book an appointment for you, send an email, make a phone call, like book an airline ticket
Sure.
until you give it access to things that actually have buying power, like your credit card, your bank account, stock trading application. Like again, we're opening it up, right? To this could be pretty dangerous if you give it autonomy, which at this point it just has autonomy. There are no
I was gonna
rules.
say,
Uh,
I would say it'd be really hard to like. I would create the argument, if you're even remotely interested in exploring this, do not put this on a computer that has anything else on it.
mhm.
Period.
So that opens up a larger topic. It's a topic of the day, but that opens up the larger topic, Chris, too. We are, unless you tell, your opinion could be different. My opinion is we are in the wild, wild west days of all of this AI and all of the things that come attached to it. And a lot of people promise a lot of things. I hate to keep going back to it, but when I first bought my PSA and RMM, they sold me a single pane of glass. I never got to. I don't know where
Right. Right.
never showed up. It
Yeah.
was a great dream, but the unicorn I could
Yeah.
never catch, right? So we're all hearing like the movies are coming to life. The computer from the Star Trek Enterprise or Jarvis from Iron Man can come to life. I, maybe eventually. I don't, is that 2026? I don't know, but I can tell you right now what I'm concerned about on our reckless abandon to get there. I don't think security is even in the conversation. What are you hearing?
I think that the consumerism space has always been driven by convenience at the
Mhm.
price of privacy, right? We are in the consumer space very quick to give up privacy and I would say this is a pretty universal. I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think about things like the gas station that says sign up for our rewards program,
Mm-hmm.
save a nickel on a gallon of gas, every time or whatever it is in the store. Everything that you are doing that you use that card for is creating a persona, a profile about you. And while it may anonymize the data, I really don't care what it does or doesn't do at this point because I don't have one. Um, but like it's going to be able to target you, even if it's only targeting you through the card, right? So if I use that card at a gas station, we've all seen the little video screen, it starts talking to you about, get a discount on whatever. We're probably not all that far off from when you tap that card to have it be a very personal. And the reason why I throw that out there is we've seen in hotels where you can choose to stream content from your favorite streaming services just by authenticating on those devices, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why not have the card contain already the token that says, well, this is CJ. And so when I tap, it gives me the targeted. It knows I like the Monster Energy drinks. It knows. So, like, that's just barely scratching the surface. And we're seeing this across all different kinds of technology that have largely been around for a very long time, with or without the AI is kind of not the point. But consumerism, we give up privacy at the blink of an eye. In the business world, I think security, quite honestly, today, we are far more mature, I think, than we've ever been at least being able to say, maybe not. Maybe I should pause. Maybe I should ask a question. Whereas 5+ years ago, it wouldn't have even been for the average employee. That's IT's problem. That's the IT department. They handle those kind of challenges. Security, I think, is becoming a conversation piece. I think it's not happening fast enough because everybody wants the tool. Everybody's got
Mm-hmm.
FOMO about, well, so and so, how come they get Copilot and I don't? It's like, what are you going to use Copilot for? I don't know, but I assume if I had it, I'd be far more productive than I am right now.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, okay. Here's the other problem, Chris. I mean, because everybody's jumping in on this bandwagon, every existing solution supplier, vendor, SaaS company seems to just be bolting it on. And the earliest form of this, I remember the RMM vendors in the space saying, "Oh, plug in chat OpenAI and it'll create scripts for you." And I was like, "What? You want my level one guy to ask this thing to create a script and he's not going to check anything. He's going to just
Sure.
press go." I was like, that sounds like it's a recipe for disaster. Why do I want to do this?
I mean, we've also had for years let me Google that and try to
Mm-hmm.
solve this as a level one help
Fair.
desk. So I hear what you're saying, and I think you're right. I think what's interesting is that we throw around the word or the words associated with agentic or the GPTs of the world. How many of these things were already in our world, depending on what tool we were using, that suddenly has added that to the name of the product, or they've taglined underneath the name of the product? We're even seeing this, I think, and this is kind of an interesting example, is Microsoft renaming to 365 Copilot. Is Copilot AI? I mean, one could argue that Copilot, because of the container that you have for your business environment, we've just put a label on something that says, oh, by the way, I index all this information. Huh. Indexing, the ability to see patterns and logic. Do you remember back in the day when you could buy the Google appliance and put it in your rack?
I do remember that.
The good old days, right?
I
So I
remember.
think the
That
yellow
was it
box,
was a
wasn't it?
yellow. It was yellow. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember it.
So again, I'm not trying to belittle the idea that AI isn't something that's very amazing and powerful and has lots of good that can be done with it. But I think there's a lot of hype that is being generated that if we tame some of the hype, I think people that are, in the FOMO space maybe would make better decisions. One can hope.
Okay, but all right, let me flip over to the other side of that coin. I am hearing a lot of people going into the basement, man cave, corner of the bedroom for like a week at a time, vibe coding, Claude or Lovable or all these different solutions out there. I'm going to build my own software. I actually saw a thread literally last night. I was just going through the feeds. They're like, screw you, PSA company. I made my own PSA. And I was like, whoa. I started laughing. And, you know, person on the other side of the room was like, what are you doing? Is this a cat video? I was like, nah, but it could be.
Right.
Like, could you believe, like, I almost couldn't believe it, but I believe that they think that they can just talk and then the system's got to build it. And this person's like, yeah, you know, I built this all, it creates invoice for me. All I got to do is go and approve it. This is so much better than what the other guy was offering me. I'm canceling my subscription. And I was like, wow.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to say first, I think there's truth into what that person has created, in that it maybe actually is solving fill in the blank problem for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Jason Slagle. I've had conversations with lots of people about this, but Jason Slagle said something that really hit home with me. I spent a lot of my early years in the developer space, and I wasn't a very good developer, but boy, did I know how to break stuff. Like,
Mm.
put Chris in quality control, and he will fundamentally prove to you that hitting the enter key too many times when the fields haven't been all populated correctly causes a problem with the server side of the application. So, and I think that's where in lies the problem. When you vibe code as having no experience with being a developer, you're just building and letting some third party just create as it goes. There's no governance, there's no spot check, there's no quality control, there's no checking to see does it play by any sort of ethics or follow any sort of boundaries that say, hey, we don't care about information over here, we only care about it over here. I had someone tell me the other day, they were I'll just say medical. I don't, if I get too specific it could easily uh, become more of a problem. But basically, they were talking about how you can do patient interactions, and it was largely tied to more of a marketing standpoint than it was about medical diagnosis and that kind of thing. But the point of it was is they were actually talking about Claudebot and some of the others. So interestingly enough, right? And one of the things that they were talking about is like how to make something like that secure. And we were kind of looking at this going, well, the very nature of what you've created says not secure, just because of the approach that you took in this patient interaction. And I said, you know, like let's turn this around. Let's just say marketing is a benign tumor. It's annoying, and as long as it doesn't get too big, you're probably just going to leave it alone, unless it's, you know, unsightly, I suppose. But what was interesting is if you think about how easily this turns into a problem when it starts talking about like medical diagnosis or prescribing medication, and your the prompt says, oh, you would like to override the 3.1 milliliters or whatever the milligrams dosage is? Oh, cool, no problem. Did it. Is there a paper trail? Was there any checking or validating that that's not going to kill the patient? Or I think that's where we are starting to see things like vibe coding and some of this other stuff that, yes, we can build faster than we can secure. What problems are we really solving when we go as if we're running a, you know, a sprint, you know, or if we doing speed skating or something along those lines, just because we can?
Yeah, I think about all the conversations that make it to me where they're like, "Hey, we need you to fill out this security questionnaire. We need you. We're going through SOC 2. We're going through this,
Yeah.
that, the other." And like, there is no compliance documentation for your vibe coded project. Like, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Right.
there is no third party patching, you know, update release schedule for your homegrown thing that you had built, right?
And
Like,
what copyright violations do you not know about that it harvested from some library that it found online that it has just said, hey, we can use this? Ka-chink.
yeah, 100%. I mean, you know, one could argue, how did they find you? But different story, right?
Yeah, you know, and I think to your point, the other scary piece of this is the cost to vibe code very low. The
Hmm.
cost to go back and verify, validate, and secure extremely high.
So you just kicked your problem down the road.
Not necessarily. I just think that what problems do we really think we're solving? Like, if you told me, you know, hey, to the example that you gave with regards to invoicing, was it worth it? The amount of time that was probably spent in the bedroom vibe coding to get the outcome that they wanted, I would argue they didn't do a very good job of looking what off the shelf options were to solve the problem that they thought they had, which, quite honestly, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, did they even have the tools in place implemented correctly in the first place?
Probably not, because the second thread underneath of that was the cost to implement new tools. Like it was literally like right underneath each other, to the point, Chris, where people were asking, was there a cheaper option to deploy XYZ new tool than the this price point? And then immediately the comments in the thread were, you need this, like you shouldn't just plug this new
Yeah,
application in and do it yourself. It's not small, like it does require help, unless you do this every day. And then like the guy on the upper thread kind of popped into that one and was like, and that's why I just built my own. And I was just like, okay, this is a very bad black hole here. Like, I didn't respond, I was just a reader, but I was like, last week I was reading a SaaS founder in the sandbox who was like, literally listed 10 products that he's using, some paid for, some open source, and he's like, I'm going to vibe code till all 10 of these products are out of my business. And he put that picture where it was like, the death going from one door with the blood trail to
yeah,
the other. And I was like, and one of them was his RMM tool. And I was like, you're going to vibe code an RMM tool to displace, this open source RMM that does get updated, is contributed to, are constant, revisions to, but it's free.
yeah.
Like, what is the purpose?
It's so you couple that with the cybersecurity dilemma. And I had someone tell me, I want to say it was back in December, they're like, I predict in 2026, we see a collapse in the cybersecurity vendor space where there is just a flat out, just a mind numbing because of all the claims that have been made around, use us and we stop X, use us and we can help you avoid fill in the blank. And I think as he and I were talking, to the point about vibe coding, he's like, vibe coding creates the opportunity for you to just go around whatever the tool does, right? Because it doesn't have any sort of rules attached to what it can and can't do. It's only as smart as it gets given instruction. And if the instructions give enough of a clarity around what you want, then the tool's going to do everything it can to achieve that. And I think that's one of the areas where it makes me really nervous to think about they standing in the ivory tower and saying, it's the new industrial revolution and the majority of white collar labor as we know it is going to be gone.
By
There
the
might be,
way, I
yeah,
see this claim made every day.
every day,
I
yeah,
think it was the head of Microsoft AI said 12 to 18 months, all white collar jobs would, mostly be gone. And I'm like, what? I was like, this is a bold claim. Like, by the way, you're going to be fact checked. It's not going to take long to get to this timeline.
yeah. Let's assume that that's true. What they're not saying is what does it create the void for that is now empty. So I think that I would look at it through the lens of when we saw the previous times we've had sort of the revolution of fill in the blank. I mean the technology cycle when we first started seeing the what is it the I forget what the physics law is, but they're like every whatever 18 months we saw chipsets shrinking and quadrupling in power, and
Yeah,
that
Moore's
slowed
law,
way
right?
down, right? Yeah, that Moore's law, and it slowed way down, right? Like we're not seeing hardware uh, accelerate in the way it did even 5 years ago, but it changed how we work. It killed jobs, right? Like I don't go to the Geek Squad anymore to have them swap out my hard drive like we used to do. Like, that was a big deal. I remember when I was working in the school district, I replaced 80 drives in 3 months because we had a bad batch, and it was cheaper to do it without the calling it on warranty than it was to do it ourselves. So I think we need to be wary of the fact that the labor market's going to change. I think that when people say, yeah, I don't use AI, or I'm ignoring AI, or I think AI is stupid, all those things may be good things to do. I honestly I don't have evidence to prove otherwise. But I would say that if we don't put in the effort to understand how a lot of these AI tools work, then there's a good chance that we do go by the way of the dinosaur in our current job role if we're not paying attention to the things that we maybe should be doing to stay abreast and current on the changes in the market.
No, I think a lot of people are in this business because of the cool new toy effect. I mean, I sure as crap came into this early days because I enjoyed the tech part of it and the newness, right? The like opening up a new toy every day kind of thing. Um, but the bleeding edge part of the conversation is, hey, you're on the front of it, but it may
Yeah,
not be mature enough to put into a business and stand on it, right? And so I think over time in my own personal journey, I had to balance that, right? Hey, this is
yeah,
cool. I want to play with it. But hey, is it reliable, consistent, and can I trust it enough to make it the replacement to something that's already there, without it blowing back on me? And, you know, as much as I love to be on this side, I've kind of leaned towards the closer to the middle, right? Like I always play with new stuff, but I would, I know this is an old school thought, but just run with me for a second. If I recommend you to someone or something and it goes bad, you're coming back to me. I don't care what
sure.
happened, like good or bad. You're like, hey man, that was really cool. Appreciate it. Man, why did you send me there? That was horrible. Like, what were you thinking? And I like, that's just human nature, right? And I don't want to recommend
Yeah,
something to someone, whatever it is, that I think is not going to be good for them because, then it's like your word is your bond, right? Like kind of thing. So
yeah,
like that's how my brain is constantly spinning. But the other thing is, at least for me, if I recommend something to you and it went really bad, I feel like there's an onus on me to fix it,
yeah.
right?
You
Like I
feel,
don't
well,
want
and
to.
at least it makes you feel bad because you're like, that's not what I thought was going to happen.
Right. But if I give you a recommendation that's so catastrophic, I can't do anything to fix it, that's a problem.
So let me ask you a question because it made me go back in time thinking about, we talked a lot about vibe coding and AI, and because AI is fun to talk about. So let's just assume for a minute vibe coding in the right hands. Do you remember back in the day a productivity suite made by a company called Macromedia?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember, maybe, I hope you remember since you remember Google, do you remember when they released Ultra Dev 1.0?
I do remember that. It's a
Okay,
long time ago. Go ahead.
so I'll explain it a little bit because I had been in the web development space at that point in time for about 3 or 4 years. And for those of you that don't know, that are too young to remember, there were versions of the same browser that
Mm,
were being maintained for different reasons. So like you had IE 5.1 for the enterprise space.
hmm
You had, and other versions of like Netscape 4.7, like fill in the blank. There was a flavor of, and so one of the things that was really powerful about the UltraDev product when it came out is you could stop being as much of an expert on building web pages and focus more on using the tool and the libraries that it came with to help you build a like experience regardless of which browser you might end up using. Fast forward, I would argue in today's space, those things are now pretty universal. It doesn't really matter which browser you use, you get largely the same experience. They might consume more resources than one of the others, but whatever. I think vibe coding and the technologies that AI have brought about when it comes to building scripts and that kind of thing are a developer, brilliant dream. This is their ultra dev, right? I think the problem that we have is a responsibility problem in saying just because you have a computer, you now have access to all of these tools. I think that's where we have a bigger problem. Not AI is a problem, not vibe coding is a problem. It's that we're just saying, "Hey everybody, have fun."
Yeah, but going back to Microsoft, different Microsoft guy. How about the main Microsoft guy, at the top, CEO of Microsoft saying, if
Sure.
we don't adopt AI faster, they won't keep giving us the power to run it.
You, well, who's they?
The governments of the world that have to now put infrastructure costs in to make more power output.
Yeah, was it? I want to say it was Sam, was it Sam Altman that was like, "Stop being polite at the chat prompt.
Yeah,
It
don't say
is
thank you.
costing money."
Yes, millions of dollars to say thank you.
Right.
Um, Yeah, I mean, listen, it's funny because I talk to a lot of MSPs, and it seems like while Copilot is marketed everywhere from Microsoft, I don't know how much it's being purchased, like added on.
There, it's still not really here in the GCC high space, so there's still things being worked out there. It's still really a commercial product. I can see value. I will tell you a couple things I think Copilot, and I know that you can do this with others, but I'm in the Copilot ecosystem. So you think about like indexing content like this, like not waiting for the machine to index. It's just, it happens almost instantaneously. In fact, I think it was said that with Copilot, it's indexed with the AI bot before you can actually tell your computer to index a folder in OneDrive,
Wow.
um, which is kind of scary. But what I found interesting is we spend a lot of time, if we're into the content creation space, you'd spend a lot of time creating new and pulling from stuff that's already been created. And I think one of the values that Copilot gives us, especially when you curate and tell it what you want it to really look at and why, you get instantaneous responses of content that you've already built, or content that you've already processed. So, like Outlook processing, you think about how many emails we see every single day. And I'm not talking about having Outlook and AI summarize the email, but like, saying, hey, what were the most common meeting times that I had where I had the best attendance over the last 6 months? And it's like, oh, Tuesdays and Wednesdays looked really good for you. Wednesday eked out Tuesday by just a little bit. And it was almost predominantly between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. is when you had the best turnout. Guess what? That just gave me some really good direction on when I schedule meetings. If it's an important meeting, I know when I should probably schedule that meeting. Is that the best use of the tool? I don't know, but I will tell you that some of those things have really made efficiency for me that much better. The other thing is to transcribe. Take an audio, take this. When we're done with this episode, you drop it into, I mean, Zoom kind of does some of this stuff for us, but like you drop this into a tool that specializes with templates that say, oh, it's a podcast. Click here and have me summarize it because I know what kind of content it is and give you the action items and some material to use that previously you either took a lot of notes or you memorized it. And I think that the way we are bombarded with information, we're not memorizing like we used to. And the speed at which we often are doing things, taking notes seems to be like I'm trying to find the chapters on a DVD, for those of you that know what a DVD is, right? Like, oh man, was this in chapter 2 or in chapter 3? And you're like, I must have done, I wrote wrong. So I think that's what I see as a consumer of the tool, right? But I think the areas that MSPs benefit from, and I think you can attest to this, are things like what it does for me by helping to make sure the information gets captured and into the right places. Going back to, did they implement the tools well enough? I would argue if you were implementing AI tools to the tools you have as opposed to trying to build tools, you'd probably be in a much better space, and the liability wouldn't be a burden that you're taking on yourself.
Well, it also is if I'm connecting something to my not already working, deployed, functioning system. Back to the theme,
Yeah,
garbage in, garbage out. Like, how good is
right.
it going to run if all the data in there is incomplete,
Well,
inaccurate?
much faster. So the garbage out is fat. You're getting to the garbage out faster than you did before.
I joke about this all the time. As a tech on the front line of a help desk, how many times have you seen a ticket update as "I fixed it"? It should be working now. They didn't say what they did. They didn't say where the problem was. Just that kind of sentence.
So this goes back to a people problem, right? Because why this goes back to telling you to clock in on time. And if you clock in on time, yay, process works. Same with ticketing systems, right? Hey, if you don't put your notes in the ticket, you don't get paid. Cool, fixed, close. You didn't tell me what I had to write in the ticket. And you have these other challenges that come along with it, right? Open close ratio, time on ticket, that we're going back to like, but what other things could we do that would help solve for what was happening when that ticket was fixed?
I love some of the new stuff. They're like, oh, we go back in your prior ticket history and we find something of similar nature. We recommend that to you as a potential resolution step to the current issue that you're on. And you're like, cool, but that AI tool that goes to look for that data is not going to find it if it just says fixed.
You're like, man, we've got the same solution for like 30 problems. Just got to hit fix.
Press here, but
Yeah,
it doesn't do anything. Yeah,
right.
I can see where that's a problem, which is funny. You were talking about DVDs. I just pulled out my Knight Rider DVD box set.
Oh,
And,
geez, that'd be
and
cool.
my kids are like, "There's a car." He's like, "Yeah." I was actually driving back from somewhere. My kid's like, "Wouldn't it be cool if your car could talk to you?" I was like, "Well, there is a car that did talk to you." And they're like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Oh yeah, it could also like jump over things." They're like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Let me show
It
you." And
could
I
turn
popped in.
invisible.
Well, I don't know about the invisible part. I have to think about that episode. But
That
anyway,
might have been the reboot, the when they
okay,
rebooted the
that
Knight Rider
that's right. That came
series.
after, right? So I put it in,
Yeah,
and they're like, how do we buy this car? I was like, this car doesn't
yeah.
exist yet. I was like,
With the tariffs, we can't get them over here.
this car does not exist. Sorry, it does
Oh
not.
man,
There is
that's
no car that
hilarious.
turbo boosts. So, yeah, so it was funny because then they started drawing turbo boost buttons, like and putting it on their, making a Knight Rider car, out of paper. And I was like, this is hysterical. But
That's
that
so fun.
is that not, before Jarvis, that wasn't that the dream?
Look, I will
Wasn't
tell
Kit the
you,
AI of the
it
80s?
was. So we had Kit, then we had Jarvis, and I would say that the Siri and Alexa things they didn't do quite as well, right? But I will tell you the new voice that comes on my little Echo Dot. I'm like, who is this very nice voice talking to me? And I turn around as if someone's standing there, and I'm like, that needs to be out of this room. This is weird.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, they've definitely got it to be more human-like. There's no question. Like, I've heard people claim you'll never know it's an AI. I was like, they'll know. It'll say
Did you see
something that
the
just
Did you see the Valentine's Day, the cafes that were supporting those that have Valentine's Day is actually an AI?
no.
So I read a little bit about it. The one cafe that was in kind of the center of the article, I think they only had like 3 or 4 people show up on Valentine's Day to talk to their phone, their significant, AI other. And it was super interesting because these are people that have created relationships with a bot.
Hmm.
So not sure what their life was like before
There's a
AI.
slippery slope, I feel like, on this path. But yeah, I think I read an article not too long ago where like people trying to marry the AI, bot,
Yeah.
or like they paid this money, and then the algorithm changed their personality, or they discontinued that version, and now all of a sudden, like it's not there, and I was like, this is getting a little crazy now.
Well, there's the humanoid. I think they're like $30,000.
This is not the Elon Musk Optimus
No,
$30,000 iRobot creation, right?
no, this is the Neo Home Robot
Okay.
out of Palo Alto, and I can't remember what the company is. The company is called 1X. You
Okay.
can pre-order one today. They're like 30 grand, and I'm like, and it does like normal everyday chores like vacuum, do the dishes. I don't know that there were any limitations, but one of the things that they say is that they can be updated to do more things without having to take them in to get serviced.
This sounds like the movie iRobot. You remember that movie?
It sure does sound like the movie I
It
Robot.
it didn't end well, if I
No,
remember. I mean,
Will
Will
Smith
Smith
got a
was
little
great.
cray cray with the
Yeah,
guns. Yeah,
yeah. Just say it.
yeah.
Um, it's funny. I think they said that. I think it's this year was the first year in the very first movie. What was it? Schwarzenegger.
Terminator.
Yes, this is the year it starts. They said.
Oh, for Skynet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or is it this year or 2029? Like it's
I
within the next
don't.
year. It's like we're in that bubble right now.
Right. Yeah, I think one thing that people that keep saying that we're close is to remember that what we're seeing is not an intelligent being.
Mm.
We're seeing it having access to all of the human information that has ever existed. If it's in digital form, it has access to it. I think that's very different from it's thinking for itself. Can it put patterns together and do, algorithmic predictions based on data? Sure, but that's not the same thing as actually having a consciousness to go, I think that's wrong, and I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, 100%. Do you have Apple TV Plus?
I do.
Did you see from the makers of Breaking Bad, Pluribus?
I haven't watched it. I just queued it to watch. So you're saying that's worthwhile?
It falls very much along the theme that we're talking about. So
Okay.
when you go back and watch it. The first
All
season
right.
is done. I'm all, when you're done, we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about this because it feeds right into this topic.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
I don't want to screw it up for you. But yes,
Fair.
this is along the lines of what we're talking about. So let's come back to the, how the saying goes. Let's meet you where you are, right? We can talk about where you want to go, but let's talk about what's
Sure.
possible today. Is it like, is it realistic for an MSP any size to comfortably implement this stuff, AI stuff? I know that that's broad, but let's just leave it.
Sure.
You can fine tune it if you want into their business, whether it be the stuff that they deliver to their customer or whether the customer's asking them to put it in so that they can use it as part of their day to day. Like, what do you feel is safe enough to go down from your perspective versus what do you think needs more baking time?
I think that we're getting into the area where free is no longer free. So
Okay.
I would argue that in the absence of oversight, people are going to implement tools that they think are in their benefit or at least fun. So they're going to explore and take advantage of. If you give them a better path, if you give them a proactive approach to this, where you give them something that is in this category, but it's paid for and it has boundaries placed on it, and it has the ability for you to do some education on, say, appropriate uses. I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think part of the education piece that's missing right now, and we see this going all over the web, is to do the caricature
Mm-hmm.
of yourself. And it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting because you're uploading a photo of yourself, you're
Mm-hmm.
potentially giving it other information about yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
then your desired outcome is exactly what you asked for, except the part you don't remember, which is now you are identified everywhere you go because you gave them your picture, or maybe more than that. So I think that's the opportunity, is that when clients or even the MSP is saying that we're thinking about implementing Copilot or fill in the blank. I say Copilot because so many are running on that ecosystem. Maybe it's Gemini. What is the desired outcome that you have to implement this tool? And I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer in it, but if you don't have an answer at all, I'd say you're probably not ready to turn that on. Like, it's not a let's just turn the light on and see what's in the room. That's probably not a good idea. Probably not a good idea from a productivity standpoint to just say, hey, like everybody allocate 20% of the day to messing around with the chat GPT prompt or fill in the blank. I don't think that's the client asks are a little bit different, right? And I think that you're going to find clients that are saying, if my MSP doesn't want to implement Copilot or whatever it is for me, then I'm finding someone else. And there's a big marketplace opportunity wise. I will say the research that Carolyn April released for the state of the channel talked a lot about the opportunity that ITSPs have specifically in the area of AI. And I think there's some other areas that you're probably seeing MSPs embrace in some cases unknowingly, like your fill in the blank firewall company, cloud security, whatever it is doing, is leveraging AI to tune the noise, that kind of thing, right? So I think there's those other spaces where it's like you still have to do the due diligence on third party vendor management. I know Nat Lynch and Tanya I just drew a blank on last name. They're doing a session at CCF on third-party vendor management, just kind of talking through the things that you need to be thinking about. And I think that's one of the few questions that are in there that I'm like, probably should be asking that. And the other one is like stuff that we talked about is, you talked about the help desk person, using an AI to write scripts or to solve the problem. Well, I think if your organization is running tools like, Thread or Roost or some of the others that are out there, you're probably reducing the probability of a help desk tech writing a script wrong by taking advantage of scripts that have been written. Like you're using a tool that has structure to it, and you can use the building blocks that are there. And I think you help get rid of some of the human error with some of those tools, like the ability to get the information quickly when you need it. I mean, I think there's lots of pluses potentially with AI, but again, I come back to, you got to have education, you got to have a outcome, you got to be able to create a desired outcome has to be answered. If it's not, I think it's just a bad idea to turn it on.
Interesting. No, I think that's all fair. I mean, at the end of the day, uh, I'm not. we've been talking about this now in this podcast series for a long time. Everybody has a
Sure.
different angle on it, and obviously the opinions matured, but a bit. But I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying don't look into
Right.
it. I mean,
Right.
absolutely. If you have time, just like evaluating anything new, check it out, right? But when do you feel comfortable that it's at a point where it's service ready, customer ready? That is the big
Yeah.
question. And I feel like that answer is different for everyone. Some people are a little bit more fast and risky, deal with the complications
Sure.
later on. And other people are like, been burned before. Let's not do that again. And let's be a little bit more, cautious, right? And I guess it all depends on what your temperament is.
It makes me think about motorcycles. Whether you like motorcycles or you don't like motorcycles, assuming you're in the camp of you decide you want to get a motorcycle, well, the best time to learn to ride one and to invest in one's probably not at night when it's raining,
No kidding.
right? So this is kind of that same thing. Don't put yourself in a position of like, I'm going to blindly look into deploying fill in the blank, because we're seeing a lot of that, right? Just the other day, I had a conversation. Anthropic has now been added in as an option inside of Copilot. Check the box, you can turn Anthropic on. I was like,
Interesting. Even with all the OpenAI partnership ownership,
well,
Microsoft
there's a
all
whole
there.
bunch of options, I think, now in there. But what the question that we both asked ourselves is like, it doesn't say what happens when I turn this on. It's just an option to add another GPT tool into the environment. And there's other vendors out there, right? Like, take your pick. Claude, Gemini, there are all these choices inside this productivity package that you might, in fact, we see the advertisements all the time. For this one time investment, you get access to these as a suite of tools. And it's like, okay, this is great. What's my goal? Why do I need this?
I'll tell you what. I'm curious to see. I'm not even going to 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I'm curious to see what end of this year looks like. We talk about how fast things move in our space, right? Like the iPhone came out in 2008. Think about that. Like
Right.
it's not that long ago, but look at what the advancement since then. I always tell people, have you watched it, the BlackBerry movie?
Yes.
Right? Doesn't that just
Yes.
blow your mind?
Yeah. The other one that I watched, it's a series, was the Stop and Catch Fire.
I haven't seen that one.
It's so Stop and Catch Fire. I think it's on Amazon Prime. You can also, I think, buy the series, but it's all about the big four. So like Sun Microsystems, and it kind of uses names that, except for the main company that is doing all of the reverse engineering and stealing all of the information. They basically kind of hide the names. They do a good job of not, throwing shade on companies,
Sure.
to really tell the story of what happened in the 80s, with regards to being the first to market with a portable computer.
Right.
And you think
Xerox
about
is in there,
that,
right?
yeah, there's some names that a lot of people won't recognize, even if you were using the tech in the 80s. Like, they talk a little bit about like Tandy computers and some others. But what's really interesting is the whole story is about the reverse engineering. to be the first to market with a legitimate desktop PC. And I think when you said the iPhone, to think how far we've come in just a short period of time. Less than 20 years went by, and we went from this suitcase won't fit in the trunk of my car, portable, to this has a 7-inch screen and I can fit it in my pocket.
Right? I argue Palm Pilot was ahead of their time. They just didn't know it.
Yeah. The
I
Sony
feel,
Clie,
yeah, right? I
the
remember that one.
hinged.
And I feel like BlackBerry just made bad decisions when they could have been still in the mix.
Yeah, I remember when the Storm came out and then the Storm 2, and those were full blown tactile screens that even to this day, if you remember the tactile feel you had from the Storm 2, you probably have that same feeling on an Apple MacBook trackpad.
Mm-hmm.
Not even on your
100%.
phone, right? Like that the actual vibration feel, or that click feel that you get on a device. Like if you haven't noticed, turn your laptop off. That mouse, that trackpad does not have any clicking.
No.
Turn that laptop on, and all of a sudden you're like, what changed? Technology.
Yeah. No, it's
There's no
interesting.
springs in there.
I'll definitely go watch the Prime series on that. But yeah, no, the BlackBerry movie was amazing. I'm not blowing it for anyone. It's just a well-known story, but BlackBerry was like the original, like had created a totally encrypted secure messaging platform before anybody almost.
Almost to the degree of thinking about like an exchange server from back in the day that you ran on prem. You could do the same thing with the BlackBerry equivalent. And BlackBerry had like, I think it was free for like 25 users.
Forever. It was free forever. Like they just
Right. But
gave
I mean, like if
everybody.
your employee count was low
Yeah.
enough, you had a free solution.
Yeah. And it just ran.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's amazing how time flies, man.
Maybe
Chris,
they'll bring it
we're
back.
definitely gonna run into you if you're headed to Chicago in March. So
Yep.
at the communities forums. Where else are you planning to be that you can think of this year?
So I went ahead and registered. I will see you at Enable in Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, see that? I hooked you up.
Um,
You didn't even remember about that one, did you?
yes, yes. So I've got that. Of course, I'll be at the Gtia events. I don't know that. See, Pack State in June.
Okay,
I think that's
Utah.
kind of the stack that I have on the first half. I've got 6 or 7 there. The second half of the year, that I'm still working out some of the details, but probably looking to do the Salute with MSP Global again and some other shows throughout the EU region. It just kind of depends on how things get stacked as we go into the middle of the year.
Real quick, what did you think of that MSP Global event?
So that's a great question. So I'll give you two real wins from MSP Global, whether someone duplicates it or not, that I thought were really cool. One was they had their main stage, like you see at a lot of events, where there's the education sessions, and you've got kind of that main track vibe going, where that's where most of the content is. Then they had what they call the elevator stage, and legitimately they had this kind of pretend elevator with an elevator operator that would open the doors and you'd come out and you would do your elevator pitch. And I thought that was really cool because no preconceived like misunderstanding here. Like I'm going in here, I will be pitched at because it's in the elevator stage, right? The other thing that was kind of cool that they did that I hadn't seen in a lot of other places is they had what they called the VIP lounge. And so the VIP lounge was something that they made. They kind of hyped it really really well. But like throughout the day, if you were one of the VIPs, you had access to real infrastructure while you're at an event. So you could go and have meetings and you could have a desk and get work done without actually feeling like you had to go back to your hotel room just to do that Zoom call or Teams call. And then it was nonstop content. Like it started on Monday afternoon and it went solid through Friday.
Wow. Okay.
So there's
And
a
it
lot of people.
was in a theme park in Spain.
Yes. So there's a slight downside to that is that to go from Barcelona, where you fly into, most people fly into, is an hour drive to Salou
Okay.
on a private highway. So
Private highway.
so
Okay.
you get on this highway, you go through the toll, and then at the other end, you go through the toll again, and now you're in the parking lot for this theme park.
Wow. I
I
wonder how
mean,
much
there's
it took to put that.
Salou is there, but it's an interesting setup. I think one of the things that I found as kind of big takeaways from the event is how engaged for such a large event. I think that's the takeaway is like I've been to, events that range in size from less than 100, to 7,000 or more. And they managed somewhere in the middle of, I think there's about 3,000 attendees there. It felt like a much smaller show because of the engagement.
Okay. Interesting. Different format.
Oh, in some respects, yeah. I mean, they really were focused on going to the sessions and attending the tracks, right? Um, One of the things that I thought was really cool is you could also do a tour, and they did it in different languages. So I chose English, surprise. But they took you on a tour of 8 vendors in the tech pavilion. And as a group, you had microphone headsets so that you could hear the person speaking. And they articulated, kind of sort of the spiel. But because it was a kind of a private tour, they also had like little swag gifts that they gave that were not gifts that they had just sitting out on the booth. So it's kind of cool. You got a personal experience of getting a kind of a tour walking through, and had a
Hmm.
tour guide. I had Patrick Burgess was my infamous tour guide. And then after we were done with the little tour, we all went back and we had a kind of social gathering with our group of 8 to 10 people, and we kind of recapped what we saw at the vendor booth, what we liked about what they showed us. Was it a value that we thought something that we would take back and share with others, or is it something that we needed a lot more information before we felt comfortable, going further down that path?
Sounds like they've tried to put a whole different spin on how to spin the plate.
I think so. I mean, I was quite surprised. I didn't know what to expect, and I know that since it's put on by MSP Global, they have the MSP, their other show that they do that is just like has exploded in
Cloud Fest,
size.
which is like
Yes.
9,000 or 11. It's like some crazy number of people.
So then they are contracted, I think, for the next 3 years at the theme park.
Wow.
So they did say they have some big plans to make this a bigger to make it bigger next year. So while we were there, they're in the process of remodeling a lot of the hotel space. So we'll see if that got finished.
Interesting. Well, that's a good. I hadn't asked, so I'm glad I got that
Fair.
feedback. Chris, I know we're a little bit over time. Always a pleasure, man. I know we could do this for hours. I mean, I could
It's fun.
go. It's like I'm at just hanging out, having a
That's
conversation.
right. That's the way it should be.
I 100% agree. Hopefully, we'll see you in Chicago. Definitely
See you in
before, hopefully
Chicago.
mid-year. Guys, this session was recorded. I have a couple of sessions with Chris. It does evolve, right? Like the conversation does build on each other. I definitely go
Sure.
back and rewind the other ones. You'll find that at mspinitiative.com. Follow GTAI, stands for the Global Technology Industry Association. Check out the Cybersecurity Trustmark program. Really is like a independent, you're doing the right thing validation program, right? Like from a cybersecurity
It
standpoint.
is. Trust
So
International is the accreditation that's handling this. So yeah, it's recognized around the world, and insurance is now jumping on board.
so if you wanna give somebody a good feeling. Like I hate to bring up like Better Business Bureau. Like I'm not so sure I subscribe, but you get the idea behind it, right? Like you're having a
Yep.
third independent party say, "Hey, we've done the homework. We have no, bones to pick. They're not paying us cash on the side, to pass them,
Yeah.
right? Like they actually did the
Yep.
work. Here's the check mark. So check that out.
Absolutely.
And we are looking forward to seeing everybody here on the road here in a little bit. Thanks for jumping on, Chris. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
All right, guys. See ya.